So this video is a follow-up to a whole bunch of videos I've been making recently. There's a whole lot of information. I've been talking about all of these sports stories and also other stories in the media and how they're all interrelated. They're all coded with gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words. It is a system that is used by the Freemasons, the Zionist Jews, and people alike who have pretty much scripted our whole world. Anyway, I'll leave a bunch of links in the description so you can understand what I'm doing, how I'm coming up with the numbers, what exactly I'm talking about. I have a playlist of a bunch of these videos in regards to sports. Just go back probably like 10 videos and you'll catch back up. But I mean, there's just a whole lot going on. There's a lot of interrelated stories. These people love to do riddles. And they love to just leave riddles in their coded articles, their coded games, their coded movies. They just leave riddles. And if you can figure out the riddles, you can figure out what's to come in the future. You know what I mean? You can figure out who's going to win the sports championship. You can figure out, what's going on with the government. There's a lot of things you can find out if you learn this code and you figure out the little riddles that they put in the media and movies and whatever else, foreshadowing stuff. So anyway, the day after the Nebraska game, we got the story on ESPN about how Sam Foltz' brother's house got robbed by thieves, which is very interesting. Thieves in gematria equals 34, and with the S exception, also 43. Remember, Sam Foltz died 43 days before Nebraska's first game where they won with 43 points, and they played Fresno State that equals 43. The other guy who died with Sam Foltz, his name equals 43. Nebraska has 43 conference championships right now. The word Civil War equals 43. Think about Abraham Lincoln and the connection to Lincoln, Nebraska. Abraham Lincoln, born on the 43rd day of the year. He died 4 years, 3 days after the Civil War began. The word champion also equals 43, but like I mentioned in the last video, a lot of times I see it with a team who makes the final game but then doesn't win, but who knows? It could also possibly just be, talking about the 1971 championship. I've said it's been coded to, where Nebraska won its first championship against LSU. The other player in that car accident was the LSU player who didn't die. They died in Wisconsin, and then LSU loses to Wisconsin on the first game of the season. Sam Foltz, the big way in gematria, equals 112. He also died 1 month, 12 days before Nebraska's first game. LSU is in its 112th season. Les Miles, their coach, has 112 wins going into the game. And there's a whole lot more that I've mentioned. Just check out the previous posts. I'll also leave a link to this blog, and you can check that out. It'll save you a lot of time, but I also mention a lot of stuff in the videos that I don't talk about on here or whatever. Anyway, in this article, they mention how the thieves took $1,400, including a television and tools, from Jordan Foltz' home. $1,400 is interesting because the 43 is the 14th prime. 1,400. In numerology, they don't use the zeros, so 1,400 is a 14. 14th prime is 43, once again connecting to Sam Foltz. If you write out the word 14, it equals 41, just like the word brother, and it was Sam Foltz' brother. 41 is a big number around Nebraska. Husker fans equal 41. They play in Memorial Stadium. Memorial equals 41. Black shirts equal 41. If you write out red in, it equals 41. Also, Bob Devaney equals 41. He was the coach when Nebraska first became the Black Shirts. He died on May 9th. If you write out May 9th, it equals 41. The other two coaches, the defensive coaches when he was coaching, their names equal 59, and he dies on 5/9. Also, Skull and Bones, like what George Bush and John Kerry are in, the Skull and Bones Society. Skull and Bones equals 41. And just think about that in regards to Nebraska's black shirts throwing up the bones. There's a whole lot more involved in it. I just wrote in a few of them here. I mean, even think about George Bush and John Kerry in regards to 9/11. 9/11 happened on a date numerology of 41. Airplanes equal 41. Al-Qaeda equals 41. Muslims equal 41. Zionists equal 41. The real people who did it. Anyway, since they separated television and tools, I just wrote television tools together. And in gematria, it equals 211, also 67 and 76, which is very interesting. A lot of this stuff I talked about goes back to the date of 7/6 when we got the Alton, Sterling, Philando Castile stories. Louisiana and Minnesota together also equal 211 and 76. It was also the day that Dwayne Wade signed with the Chicago Bulls. Nebraska's coach Mike Riley was even born on 7/6. Last year, Nebraska went 6-7. Bo Pelini was fired after 67 wins. Anyway, this 211 and 112, I have seen a whole lot. Sam Foltz was born on January 21st, which in most parts of the world, they write the date 21/1, a lot like 211. He died 211 days after the last Nebraska game that he played in the Foster Farms Bowl, which connects back to Colin Kaepernick in Levi's Stadium. Nebraska connected to Moses. They play in the Sea of Red. Of course, Moses was from the tribe of Levi. I mean, I'll get more into that as we move on, but Sam Foltz equals 112, like I said. He died 1 month, 12 days before Nebraska's first game. Even, I talked about how it's connected to Teddy Bridgewater. Bridgewater equals 112. Adrian Peterson, also Minnesota Viking. Peterson equals 112. Jordan Foltz in gematria, his brother's name then, equals 51 the small way, 141 the big way. Samuel Foltz, if you write out just Samuel Foltz, it also equals 51. So both of these guys have gematria the same, the small way. 51, you know, there's a lot of times where I talk about 51, the word conspiracy equals 51, tinfoil hats equal 51, area 51. But this reminds me a lot of Super Bowl 51, and I've been talking a lot about how I think that the Nebraska Cornhuskers and the death of Sam Foltz were foreshadowing the Colts being in the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 51 played in Houston. Houston equals 112 like Sam Foltz. We're also going into the 112th World Series. In regards to his brother equaling 141 as well, the big way, it just reminds me a lot. I just talked about the death of Chuck Bednarik and how it's connected to the death of Frank Gifford. Chuck Bednarik was a Philadelphia Eagle who was responsible for knocking Frank Gifford out for a year and a half out of football. And then, of course, we had Luke Gifford in the Nebraska-Fresno State game get ejected for targeting. I mean, just think about that in regards to Chuck Bednarik knocking Frank Gifford out, like, you know, hitting him with a hard hit. Anyway, Chuck Bednarik died 141 days before Frank Gifford. Frank Gifford died on 8/9, which this year was the 222nd day. Nebraska Cornhuskers equals 222 in gematria. And if you go back and watch Luke Gifford getting ejected, he got ejected with 2 minutes, 22 seconds in the second quarter. Some other interesting 141. I made a video about the death of Zavion Dobson and how it's connected to all of this. Oklahoma State, his brother was wearing an Oklahoma State hat in the interview on CNN. Oklahoma State equals 141. That's Les Miles' old team. Also, World War III equals 141. And I talked about it in regards to Thanksgiving in a video a while back. Maybe I'll leave a link to that video in the description. I talk about the movie Rocky and how Rocky's super connected to Thanksgiving, a bunch of stuff in regards to World War. Sylvester Stallone was even in Nice, France when they had the fake Nice, France attack. Sylvester Stallone, also born on 7/6, just like the character in the movie Rocky, who was born on 7/6, and the movie came out in 1976. Leonard Fournette equals 76, the LSU running back. Leslie Edwin Miles equals 76. You know, and in regards to Rocky too, if you write out Sylvester Stallone's real name, his full name, it equals 117. Nebraska's in its 117th season being called the Cornhuskers. Dwayne Wade, who went to Nebraska last year, or his cousin died, but then last year he went to his first ever Nebraska Cornhusker game on a date that leaves 117 days in the year. He was born on January 17th. Colin Kaepernick was compared to Muhammad Ali, and think about that in regards to Rocky. And Muhammad Ali was born on January 17th. He died of Parkinson's disease. It equals 117. And one of the big things I talked about in regards to Sam Foltz dying with Mike Sadler, the former Michigan State player, and the LSU player surviving, was last year Nebraska upset Michigan State on 11-7, a lot like 117. That same weekend, Teddy Bridgewater got knocked out by the Rams player. Then Teddy Bridgewater this year gets injured just before the Rams preseason game. And think about that in regards to Moses the lawgiver, Aries the ram. And in regards to the law, this story about his brother being robbed by thieves just reminds me a lot of the law, right? It reminds me of Moses, the lawgiver. Also in the Bible, Samuel is known as one of the last judges in the Bible. Or he's the last of the Hebrew judges and the first of the major prophets. So definitely a judge law type theme, and I'll get to that in a second. Samuel and Gematria also equal 71, like Nebraska, like Moses, like the Ten Commandments. And just throwing it out there in regards to the 141, if you write out World War III and you write out the word 3 instead of 3 eyes, World War III also equals 71. The word Catholic equals 71. So anyway, in regards to the judges, I mean, just think about the death of Antonin Scalia and how big that was in the news this year. And that was also the same day as the Oklahoma earthquake. We got the 5.1 Oklahoma earthquake. On a date numerology of 51, Antonin Scalia equals 51. Just like Jordan Foltz, just like Samuel Foltz. It was also the 44th day of the year. The word earthquake equals 44. And, you know, I never thought about it, but in that post or video, I talked about how the last biggest earthquake in Oklahoma was a 5.6. And then the same day that we have Nebraska play Fresno State, we get the 5.6 earthquake in Oklahoma. And think about that. 5.6 plus 5.6, 11.2, a lot like 112. Anyway, when I started noticing this judge theme was last year, there was a Texas judge named Julie Kokorek, or however you say her name, who got shot outside of her home. And the interesting thing, her name in Gematria equals 51, just like Antonin Scalia. The big way, her name equals 141. And she got shot on Friday, 11/6, the day before Nebraska upset Michigan State. ESPN also ran an article about this disabled kid named Barack Price, and his brother plays for Michigan State, Josiah Price. And what sticks out about that is Barack and Josiah in the Bible are both people who are connected to the law in the Bible. This lady also got shot 14 weeks, 1 day before Antonin Scalia died. And then later, Obama nominated Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland in Gematria equals 71, like Moses, like Nebraska. But Obama nominated him 141 days before his 55th birthday on 8/4. Kokorek equals 84 in Gematria. Obama equals 84 in Gematria. He's born on 8/4. The day this lady was shot even is the day that leaves 55 days in the year. You see how it's kind of the reflection and the weirdness of it. Another interesting thing about the death of Antonin Scalia is that his name in Jewish Gematria equals 404. just like Prince Charles, just like Pope Francis. And if you remember, Pope Francis arrived in the United States last year at 4:04 p.m. Last year was 404 years after the King James Bible came out. Revelation has 404 verses. Pope Francis even went to Philadelphia. That's where he finished his trip. And it was the night before the blood moon, or the final blood moon of the Tetrad and whatnot. Anyway, Pope Francis gave a speech using Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address lectern when he was in Philadelphia. Of course, Philadelphia comes from the book of Revelation. And a long time ago, I talked about how the capital of the country, Jordan, was called Philadelphia in the year until the year 106 AD, and then it was later destroyed by earthquakes. And in regards to Sam Foltz' brother being named Jordan Foltz, and I just showed how there was a targeting call at the end of the Nebraska game with 1:27 left. It was a hit on a guy named Jordan. But Michael Jordan, the basketball player, he first retired on 10/6 even, a lot like 106, 10/6, 106 AD. And then we get the 5.6 earthquake on the opening football day. Another interesting thing about the 56, or I guess in regards to this being minute 27, I said Nebraska's in its 127th season, but they're also in their 117th season being the Cornhuskers. But what sticks out about the 127 is that this year the 127th day was May 6th, 5/6. 5/6 or May 6th, also very special because it's the day that leaves 239 days in the year. Last year we were in the 239th year of the United States. And, I talked a whole lot about that number. 923 could even be written 23/9, a lot like 239. Pope Francis came to the United States on his 923rd day as Pope, went to the White House at 923 on 923. I even talked about how Nebraska Cornhuskers, the game that Dwayne Wade went to, they played BYU, the Mormon school. The Book of Mormon has 239 chapters. I talked about the movie Tommy Boy and how it's connected to Jerry Sandusky. And Nebraska was the first team to play them after Sandusky was gone and whatnot. And he also says Herbie Hancock, and he drops his American history book that has the number 239 written on it. So whatever was going on Pope Francis's visit, very symbolic. Even the Golden Gate equals 239 in regards to Colin Kaepernick and Nebraska playing in Levi's Stadium for their bowl game last year. Golden Gate equals 239. It comes from the Torah that equals 239. The Jews believe that the Messiah will come through the Golden Gate. Just a whole lot of stuff going on last year, and I talked a lot about Nebraska being super coded last year. And then, of course, this year they're super connected to the same stuff, except for this year Nebraska got the death of one of their players, which really steps the game up, And Sam Foltz even died in regards to Michael Jordan. Sam Foltz died on Michael Jordan's dad's anniversary of being dead. So he died the same day. He died on the 23rd anniversary of Michael Jordan's dad. And just think about that in regards to Michael Jordan and the 23, Michael Jordan wore number 23. Michael Jordan's dad even dies at the age of 56. Oh, the odds. And one other thing I want to point out about this is July 23rd is the first day of the Dog Days of Summer. Sirius, the Dog Star. Alan Parsons Project is the one who has the intro song for the Chicago Bulls. The dun 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 dun. Just wanted to point out, that song is called Sirius, right? Just think about this. I've talked about all the Teen Wolf stuff and how it connects back to Lupercalia in regards to the Nebraska Cornhusker stuff being in the background of the movie Teen Wolf, and how it's connected, to the festival of Lupercalia where they celebrate and sacrifice the wolf or the dog. Then we got Sam Foltz, who dies on the same day as Michael Jordan, and it's the first day of the Dog Days of Summer. Sirius is the Dog Star. Sirius is also the intro song for the Chicago Bulls when Michael Jordan was there. Michael Jordan then even retires 2 months, 13 days later, right? On 10/6, like I said. 2 months, 13 days. The first day of Lupercalia, 2/13. February 13th, the day that Antonin Scalia died. And think about that in regards to what I showed in the last video with Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union going to the Nebraska game wearing number 21 and number 3, a lot like 213. Anyway, I'll come back to that in a second. I forgot to mention in regards to earthquakes, before Moses went to the top of Mount Sinai, there was also an earthquake in the Bible. I've also mentioned a whole lot in regards to Philadelphia and a possible earthquake and, something in regards to the Ben Franklin Bridge, who's super connected. But Philadelphia right now is in its 333rd year of existence. If you write out University of Nebraska-Lincoln, it equals 333 as well. Anyway, back to the 2-1-3 stuff. So Dwayne Wade, Gabrielle Union wearing 21 and 3. There's a ton of 2-1-3 references in regards to black people and the whole Civil War, civil rights theme that they're doing. Just think about even like the song Regulators. They talk about the 2-1-3. Tupac's last album before he died was All Eyes on Me that came out on 2/13. He died 213 days later. There's a ton more examples. Then Michael Jordan's dad dies 2 months, 13 days before Michael Jordan decides to retire. Also, in regards to the dog days and the dog days of summer and Lupercalia, the other person who died with Sam Foltz was Mike Sadler, the Michigan State player. I know Michigan is the Wolverines, but Michigan, the state, is the Wolverine state. If you go from 2/13 to the day that Sam Foltz, Mike Sadler died, a span of 23 weeks, and they died 23 years, exactly after Michael Jordan's dad. Also a span of 161 days, which is interesting. American Civil War equals 161. Anyway, I'll leave a link to my Little Bow Wow retiring video. That has a whole bunch of good information in regards to Michael Jordan. If you watch it on your phone, it might not show up. I put a lot of notes on the video, and I noticed when I looked at it on my phone and all of my videos, them notes do not show up for whatever the reason. And a lot of them notes are very important, and they're things that I just forgot to talk about in the video that make the video that much more worthwhile. So if they don't show up, I recommend watching it on a computer or something that the notes will actually show up, because there's a whole bunch of good information about Michael Jordan and how it connects to the new Rocky film that came out, Creed, that stars Michael B. Jordan. There's a whole bunch of stuff connecting to the number 29 and the word football equals 29. Anyway, that video, I just mentioned it because there's a lot of really great information involving Michael Jordan in that video. And in regards to Michael Jordan's birthday on 2/17, also the NBA All-Star Week being moved, or they announced that they were moving it from where Michael Jordan owns, the Charlotte Hornets, and they announced that on 21/7, the NBA All-Star Week begins on Michael Jordan's birthday next year, 2/17. But anyway, a few other things that I wanted to point out about this story. So Jordan Foltz equals 141 in Gematria, and it just reminds me, the 141 reminds me a lot of a story that I swear the news put on there for me to see only. I mean, possibly not, but I'm telling you, all of the stuff that I was talking about last year with the Nebraska Cornhuskers, I was talking about the Civil War connection and whatnot. And then my aunt's brother made it on a CNN article. He was a principal at a school in Harrisburg High School in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and he supposedly got shot in the arm by a kid named Mason Buell. Anyway, that shooting just so happened to be the 141st school shooting after Sandy Hook. It was also 141 days after the Philadelphia train wreck, and there was also a Vermont train wreck just a few days later, and they're originally from Vermont and a bunch of other stuff. So it's one of them train wrecks that didn't get talked about that much. There's a whole lot more to the story than, I truly know what's going on, but there was something in connection with that Philadelphia train wreck last year, and Pope Francis's visit, and the Abraham Lincoln stuff with him giving the speech with Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address lectern. Anyway, the school shooting then. School shooting even equals 71, like Nebraska, like Catholic, like the Pope, right? Harrisburg High School equals 117 in gematria. Once again, connecting to all this stuff I talked about with Nebraska. So it was 141 shootings after Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook equals 112. Sam Foltz equals 112. Adam Lanza, in a non-leap year, his birthday even on the 112th day of the year. His name in gematria equals 56. He dies on a date numerology of 56. And 56, I was talking about it in this story about the South Dakota shooting and whatnot. And my aunt's name equals 56. Her brother's name equals 56. Then right after that, I didn't know what the 56 was all about. Then we got the Paris, France attack. Paris, France equals 56. ISIS equals 56. Then I later found out Osama bin Laden equals 56. Adolf Hitler equals 56. Saddam Hussein equals 56. President equals 56. Lincoln died at the age of 56 in the year 65. He died in April. That equals 56, the only month to equal 56. And believe it or not, on my birthday, my 33rd birthday, 11/10 of 2016, a date numerology of 56, and I got sick exactly 5 months, 6 days later. I can't remember the actual day. It was in April that equals 56, and it also had a date numerology of 56. So pretty weird that I would get sick, 5 months, 6 days after my birthday on a date numerology of 56, and then I get sick on a day with a 56 numerology. That's why I think there's some type of universal code that can be manipulated somehow. And I mean, there was literally 56 just all over back in November and December. Chip Kelly, the former Eagles coach, equals 56. Sam Bradford equals 56. The guy who replaced Chip Kelly equals 56. Just lots of stuff going on with that story. The only reason I bring this story back up is because the day that that shooting happened was also the same day that Joseph Patterson was convicted of killing Adrian Peterson's son in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where this shooting happened. So, how interesting is that? I'm talking about all these connections to Minnesota and the Nebraska Cornhuskers and Colin Kaepernick. Joseph Patterson convicted of killing Adrian Peterson's son in the same area on the same day that we got that story. It was also, that shooting happened in Lincoln County, and I talked about how it connected to the Philadelphia train wreck because Harrisburg High School, and Harrisburg is the last town of the Amtrak or whatever. That's where the Amtrak ends, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And in regards to Sam Foltz and Mike Sadler, Sam Foltz was number 27, Sadler was number 3. Reminds me of 273. The high school where my aunt's brother supposedly got shot was on 273rd Street. It was the 273rd day of the year in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. That equals 273. And they also died 9 months, 23 days later, the big day in regards to Pope Francis that I was super talking about in regards to Abraham Lincoln and in regards to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So, I mean, pretty weird stuff. So, anyway, I'm going to leave this video here. I know it's long. There's just a lot of information, and, I haven't figured out the puzzle. That's the problem. That's why I said the purpose of making these videos is to put it out and eventually maybe be able to figure out the puzzle, or somebody else can help me figure it out along the way. Regardless, there's a huge puzzle around the death of Sam Foltz and the Nebraska Cornhuskers and how it connects to all these civil rights stuff in the news. So Whatever, have a good one.